All right, everyone, welcome back to part 4 of my low-sec guide. And boy, am I going to go into a topic here that people are going to think I'm pretty crazy about. Like, who is going to do this in low-sec? I would not blame people if they thought that I was being paid off by the local pirates because they're having a slow month. Alex, it's a slow month. Here's some mix. Can you get some targets, please? No. This is actually going to be a legitimate guide on how to do mining in low-sec. What? Why do mining in low-sec? That is a very good question, and for quite a long time, there was no good answer. That has changed, though. Mining in low-sec can be quite profitable if you know what you're doing. And that can be a pretty big if, because it's very difficult as a miner to justify some of the risks in coming out to low-sec versus the rewards. They see the increase in rewards, and then they see the risks. It's like, I don't know if this is even worth it. Because, and the reason I say that is you can stay in high-sec, and yes, there is the threat of being ganked by code, and that's why you should never AFK mine, and the profits are dismal. You have the security of Concord. If you're a mining corporation and you're out with the alliances in 0.0, it's even safer, basically. Basically, you're alone. You can mine high-sec with high-sec type of security with all the 0.0 valuable ores and be happy as a clam. You can fulfill all your mining desires to the nth degree, but you're an alliance, and now you have to go through all the stipulations of either being a renter corporation or renter alliance, or being part of the active alliance, and realize you're going to be at the beck and call of that alliance. You can't really be a miner full time. You have to also be an ops and things like that. So low-sec is designed, again, to be in that in-between, have the middle ground between, of course, the security aspects of high-sec and the wealth aspects of 0.0, and having to deal with all the alliance type of territory stipulations that go along with that. So in low-sec, the ore that's in the belts really was not worthwhile to mine in comparison to mining in high-sec, or if you need those type of minerals, particularly isogen, mexilon, noxium, the mid type of minerals, you could easily get those from scrap metal processing rather than mining it directly. Now, however, there have been a couple shifts, and namely the big shift was the creation of ore type anomalies in low-sec. And what those can do is you see them on scan. They're not cosmic signatures, so it means you can't use a scanner ship or probing ship or covert ops ships to find them. You had to before. They were called gravimetric signatures, but now they moved to anomalies. Now this actually makes them a little bit less safer, although they are easier to find. The other key thing is ice belts. Ice belts got moved to low-sec, but who would mine ice? I mean, they're not that profitable. But the one key difference that CCB did is they moved glare crust, which was a 0.0 ice, a very valuable one, into the low-sec ice belts. And now the whole calculation has changed quite considerably. Now, with regards to ice ore, mineral ore, everything fluctuates. One type of mineral or one type of ice is valuable one day. It can easily become at the bottom of the pile the next day. One very good tool is a tool called Eve Celestis. I'm going to link it down in the description below. If you want to know what type of ore you should mine at any particular time, this will pull the prices in JITA, evaluate the ores, and you will see what is the most valuable ore in a particular region at a particular time. And this can really help you identify which one is the most profitable. So when it comes to mining, there are 3 aspects that you have to keep in mind. Whether you're mining in low-sec, null-sec, wormhole space, and even to a certain extent high-sec, but I don't do mining in high-sec. It's what you mine, how you mine it, and more importantly, what you do with it. And we're going to cover all three real quick. First one I just covered, again, what do you mind? Use Eves to Lesses, but again, there's kind of a consideration involved, which we'll touch in later. And that is, do you sell directly to market? Or do you use the materials that you mine to do something else with it? Either build something else that's more profitable, or use it to help ease some of your logistical load in operating in a more remote region of space. Okay, so let's undock here and let's actually go through how to do it. Again, these will be simple tips and tricks. Now, out here in low-sec, the rats are tougher, so a simple venture is not going to cut it. You will need something along the lines of a mining barge, either a procurer, which I would recommend, and to a certain extent, a retriever. Or if you are in a corporation or you have some friends that can help take care of the rats, you can get away with a coveter or a hulk if you're particularly daring. But here you open up the probe scanner and you'll see an ore site, glacial mass belt. And here you always want to check to see if there's anything around. So open up your D-scan, get within scanning range, 14.3. Let's pull up here, let's see if anything is around. Now with systems that have ice belts, you always see some of these citadels because the ice belts, while they do move around inside the system, they don't migrate from system to system as you with ore belts. With ore belts, you'll see different types of ore. Some are very valuable, some will not be. Of course, it depends on the particular ore at that particular time. But they can shift around the entire cluster. Ice belts don't. They stay in one system. So people like to set up shop here because as of the time of this recording, ice belts are actually quite profitable. So here I am. I'm in a skiff, although a procurer will work just as well. You want a good tanky ship when you're dealing with low sec. It's not going to save you though. If you get jumped by a gang, you're dead. If you get jumped by a heavy assault ship, you're probably dead. But you're not going to be that easy of a target for particularly cloaky ships, things like covert op ships, to a certain extent bombers and things like that. They're pretty fragile, with two exceptions. And I'll touch those in a minute. But first, I want to show here what's happening in the ice belt. So again, there are some rats here. You want to take a look at the ice that's available here. And when you warp in, you're going to warp in down at always at this point. You want to get away from this point. You want to warp in someplace else that gives you a little more separation, just a little bit, so you have a little more time to react. So there's a 56 kilometer layer crust. That's what I want to use. So I'm going to save this location. I'm going to say, I think I have ice 2. So I have another ice, and then you warp out. You don't want to stay in the warp-in point and just start mining, because if someone wants to see where you're at or they want to jump you, they can lock you instantly. Of course, if it's an interceptor or something like that, they're going to get to you almost no matter how far away you are, but that does give you another second or two to hit the warp button and get you going. Now, if you're out here for the first time, you don't know the locals very well, I recommend warp core stabilizers down the bottom. Again, it's not a get out of jail free card. They can always bump you. Okay, this is a risky profession. This is not for the faint of heart, although it can be quite profitable. But usually a lot of interceptor pilots are not expecting you to have warp core stabilizers. So that could be your one get out of jail free card. Now, if they catch you again, they will bump you. And some will bump you regardless. And that is where things such as your heavy shield, your drones, and things like that are going to come into play. But if they have to bump you, they have to get close to you. And at that point, perhaps your drones can get on top of them. And that's why I like the Procurer and I like the Skiff. Okay, so now let's warp to the ice that's on the far side of the belt. Again, we'll keep our shield resistances on, and we'll go from here. And we're going to head back in. So anyways, you're going to head back in here, and you'll essentially just start to mine. I do like carrying a survey scanner because that really does help in figuring out which ores are near depletion and which ones are not. This is particularly useful if you're doing mineralogical type of mining, mining your Arcanor, your Bistot, your high-end ores, things like that, because that can tell you how much is available. Here with ice, that's not really that big of an issue though. And start mining. Keep your D-scan open. Keep a good idea of what's around. Always keep this open and always occasionally hit the scan button. Keep your local open. Make sure you know who they are. Make sure you see where they're at. Again, security status 4.8. Good, but again, take it with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean they can't have a bad day and blow you away. And doesn't mean they can't grind up the security status high enough. But it's not a clear pirate. And better way to find out who someone is, if you have the time, is to real quickly take their name, put it into Z Killboard, and see their kill history. If you see a lot of ganking, of exploration ships, of miners and things like that, that is a sure tell flag that even with a high security status, this guy's going to kill you. So you always want to be on the lookout for that. If they don't, then you can kind of leave them alone. The other thing is being in a high transit system. This, unfortunately, in Weld is a transit system. And so you're going to see people coming in and out, unfortunately. I got some rats here, but don't need to worry about it. More worried about the players that are in the system with you. Okay, so far so good. Again, I got this out at maximum at 14.3. I want to get a clear view and as much warning time as I can if they're coming to the belt. And that is a key thing. Okay, so here I am. I'm mining. Pretty straightforward. You hit the button, get the bacon coming in. I have an ice harvester drone, but I'm going to keep that in the bay at the moment. I'm going to keep my battle drones ready to go just in case I get jumped. And we have a procurer. How do you know? We have another ice miner. That's okay. Ice belts are quite valuable right now, so that's to be expected. Procurer on skiff action. Well, we'll see. Could be like a battle barge type of thing, which would be kind of funny. Anyways, now while you're mining though, you want to do two things. First of all, always stay aligned. So this is my kind of warp out station, number 10. I'm going to be aligned to that station. The other thing is you want to be at speed, either at quarter speed. Usually around quarter speed is about 75 meters per second, which is pretty good. You just don't want to get too far away from your ore because then you will not get the benefits of that ore. Now, it's different between ice mining and ore mining. If your laser's cut out mid-cycle in ore mining, you do get the ore that you accumulated during that cycle. It's prorated. But if your laser's cut out where ice mining, you get nothing. It's all or nothing. It has to complete one complete cycle because it is one block in the ore hold. Okay? So that is another thing to keep in mind with ice mining. So here we go. We stay aligned and just do our thing. And that's really about it. Again, if you're coming out for the first time, use warp core stabilizers, use a procurer, and make sure you always keep local open, keep your D-scan open, know who's coming, check who they are, check their Z kill board and see what their history is, see who they're affiliated with. There's a lot to know here before you jump in, okay? So anyways, that being said, I'll let this cycle finish and we'll head back to station. Now I'm going to touch upon a few other things here, and that is part 3 of this whole thing about mining. Okay, what do you do with this? There's a couple different ways. First of all, you can take the ore and sell it directly to the market. Now you have to move it directly to the market, but this also comes down to your refining skills. So if you have very high refining skills, you can get the constituent materials or minerals out of this, and the overall a cubic meter space will be slightly lower for ice. It will be a lot lower for ore. So if you have a lot of ore and you can refine it down with a high refinery efficiency rate in your character, you can really bring that down a lot. Ice just comes down a little bit. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. And this goes into the whole discussion of logistics. What do you do with ore after you mine it? And this is the hardest thing for miners, particularly why they should come out to do it and the options they have. If you remember from my planetary interaction video, one of the things I said is that the toughest thing about being in LowSec is not so much what you're doing, but rather your logistical capacity. And that is even more true with mining. Thankfully, though, there are options that you have to deal with the logistical bottleneck. First thing is that there is a specialized ship that can move ore. And this was also true for planetary interaction materials. Although due to security, I thought it was easier to do that with a blockade runner because the amount of cubic meter space you need is not that high that you can do planetary interaction, and you need an epithal, which is the Galente specialized transport ship, or it's not transport ship, industrial ship that can move planetary interaction materials. With mining, however, that's a different story because here the ore is a very high amount of cubic meter space. So there are two ships that you can use. Again, the miasmos, which can hold the ore itself, or if you can refine it down, you can use the cryos, which moves the minerals. It really depends on your refining skills, what they're worth in market, and that is really how it comes down because they are entirely the same ships. However, again, you're in low sec. How you get these ships from low sec to high sec, that's going to be a little bit tricky. There are methods. There's the cloak micro warp drive trick. There is using an escort. There's using an alt to scout ahead. You just got to be on top of your game and get these ships to high sec as safe as possible because everything's going to be in the ship. Okay, you can use the deep space transport. It's a lot more expensive, but again, it's heavily armored. It's very tough and has a much higher chance of survivability because it takes a much larger gang to kill a deep space transport than it is one of these industrial ships. One of these industrial ships can be easily one-shotted by even some cruisers or battle cruisers. Okay, that's not what you want to run into. So if you do use the miasmos, the cryos, the epithal for planetary interaction, you just got to really be on your game on how you get the ship to high sec. Okay, that's a risk you're going to have to take unless you use, again, the deep space transport or to a certain extent the blockade runner. Now, the blockade runner does not do the job as well with minerals because your cargo hold is going to easily max out what the blockade runner can actually move. And if you sell the ore and minerals directly, it's really not worth the profit margin to do so. Okay, so I'm just move this over the hangar. I didn't do a full run, but you'll see what I mean here in a second. Now, that is moving the ores and materials to market directly. The third option is you use it. Now, a lot of people would think that, oh, you're going to use this to build ships. No, that's not what I mean. Use this to build certain things that you use out here that can be sold locally. So, for example, you can use it to sell ammunition that has a much higher profit margin than the ore and minerals themselves, and you don't have to move it as much. Or if you do need to move it, it's much easier to move because the cubic cargo space that they consume is much lower. In a build form or a type of component or material that is used in construction or a module or something like that, than they are in their base minerals. Okay, that's where the whole concept of mineral compression comes into and had been used for many, many years in EVE Online to actually transport large amounts of bulk materials from high sec to null sec. It was using that concept. Okay, you can use the concept here, but instead of compressing it, shipping it, and then refining it or scrap metal, recycling it, you're going to actually just sell the final components. So for example, you can take some of this ice product materials, you can do some planetary interaction, you can build fuel blocks, which you can sell locally because all the citadels can use it. Or you can take that and you can sell them to high sec because those can easily fit into a blockade runner or a deep space transport. So things like that become very, very key in how you approach moving materials from low sec to high sec to your marketplace and how you sell it, or if you sell it locally. A final third option that you can do is you can compress the ore down themselves. You can use a cheap tower, which are still available. Of course, not many people build them anymore, but there's a lot of market. You can get a compression array and you can drop the ore in there, just set up the tower real quick, compress the ore down, and then they can all fit into a deep space transport or blockade runner, and then becomes a lot easier to move than moving the actual ore in an uncompressed format to high sec. So that is another option that you can do, but you need a tower, you need deployment rights in your corporation, you need fuel to do it because, so there are going to be expenses involved, but with some small towers, you can do all the mining that you want out here and then just set up the tower one time, compress everything down, then take the tower back down and move all the ore into high sec from there. So anyways, those are just some of the options that you can do with mining. And it's not just mining in low sec, it can also be to a certain extent in null sec as well, but null sec has their own type of requirements and you're much farther away from the high sec markets. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Here, you're closer to the high sec markets. You can just get it to a high sec drop off point and transport it via a contract. Or you can sell it locally. It's probably a lot easier than doing out in null sec and you're not part of an alliance, because a lot of them have their own logistical corporations and chains where it's just easier for them just to buy in high sec and send it out here rather than building it locally. So anyways, that is my guide for mining in low sec. I think it's a very interesting type of profession. It's not one that many do, but if you come out and you mine in low sec, you are definitely not a Care Bear. You got some spine to do it, and you're definitely an industrialist. And I applaud you for it. A lot of people applaud you for it. Hell, even the pirates will applaud you for it because a lot of people don't make that transition. So again, there are risks, but there are definitely rewards. And again, things can fluctuate around, but look at ice belts, look at ore anomalies, and then at the very end, you can look at belts. I don't like belts because of two reasons. First of all, the ore is nowhere near as good as you find in anomalies or in ice belts. Secondly, not only do you have pirates, you have ratters, and a ratter can just stumble on you and maybe just kill you that way. Don't use asteroid belts if you can help it. So anyways, that's my note on asteroid belts. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the guide, guys. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. Again, this is not a complete comprehensive guide. This is just some tips and tricks for those of you who are looking at mining in low sec. It is not crazy. It's not impossible. It can actually be quite profitable. You just have to be smart in what you're doing, and particularly smart in how you utilize the materials from low sec. Do you ship them? Do you compress them? Or do you build with them? All right, take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon, and stay tuned for the next part of my low sec guide. And if you like these, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you'll always be informed when the next guide goes up or the next videos I do that go up. Again, they're not always EVE Online. There are other games as well, but I know a lot of you like EVE Online, so I'll keep doing this. All right, take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon.